Hi, I'm Jennifer, the hospice social worker. As you know, a crucial feature of individualized patient care is identifying and managing psychosocial issues. That means developing comprehensive psychosocial assessments for each of our patients is critical. Let's look at how Hospice Tools make psychosocial assessments super simple. We're in Samantha's chart, and let's go ahead and create a psychosocial eDoc. The majority of work that clinicians do in Hospice Tools is in eDocs. The eDocs are part of the Hospice Tools Flexible Forms Library. eDocs are electronically generated documents that are part of the system itself. And we can see there are eDoc forms for just about everything. Let's take a look at the psychosocial assessment. We select it and click Create eDoc, and Hospice Tools creates the form. On the left side, we have a drop-down for the different pages of this assessment form. This is a 2-page document, and these are the pages that make up this assessment. Every patient interaction form, such as assessments, progress notes, visit notes, has fields for date and time in, time out. These fields are important because they feed directly into the timekeeper timesheets, and they feed directly over to billing. So these forms have further reaching purposes than just the note itself. To start the assessment, we'll click on the date. We'll put in that it was the 25th and it was 10:30 in the morning, and our visit went until 11:30. Others present during the visit. Let's say the patient's son Jim was present. And looking at the content of the form, the first is describe the patient or family's understanding of the patient's illness. Then we have describe the patient or family's understanding of hospice pain and symptom management and the death and dying process. These sections are free text boxes where you can enter a narrative. If you're in the field working on the mobile app, these narrative sections can be filled out using talk to text, which is very convenient. Here we have pain ratings. We know that every hospice does things slightly differently, and we may want to see different things on their forms. And because these electronic forms are in a flexible forms library, we have the ability to make changes fairly easily. We can add fields, get rid of fields, make certain fields required or not required in response to how each agency works. Here we have an advanced directive section of the form. Then we have where they're at with funeral planning, and that's page 1. When we click to go over to page 2, we're prompted to save our changes. This way, if we stop the document in the middle, let's say I have to go to another patient and will finish the assessment later, we save and close, and we see that in the patient's chart, this form pops up with a red bubble as an unfinished psychosocial assessment. Because it's unfinished and it hasn't been submitted into the medical record yet, I, as the user, can go in and delete it. Once it's submitted, though, it's part of the medical record and can't be deleted. If we come back later and we're at the home page, right here on the dashboard, we now have this section at the bottom called Unfinished Documents, and it shows us that we have this psychosocial assessment that still has to be completed. If we click on it, it'll take us directly into that document. So it really helps us organize and manage our workflow so that even when we stop something in the middle and want to come back to it later, we don't have to dig through the chart to find this document. Let's go back into that assessment form. If we click over to the next page, we have a social or cultural section describing the patient's history and background, their living situation and support system, their family dynamics and impact of loss, financial information, concrete needs or referrals. So if they need a referral for counseling or Meals on Wheels or transportation or advanced directives, whatever it might be, we can click and select from a common needs list. Then we have communication and comments with other team members and comments related to the plan of care and overall impressions, and then we can go ahead and date it at the bottom. If we sign and submit the document without required fields being filled out, we'll see a message here letting us know that it can't be submitted into the record without those validations. We can just find those fields and we'll rate the pain 0. We'll say it's a verbal scale, and now we'll sign and submit. and we see that it's been submitted successfully. Now, if we go back into that patient's chart and want to see that document, we can go over to the assessment section and we see it's in green, meaning it's been submitted into the patient's medical chart. If we open the document, we see what the final version looks like, and we can see that in the final version, we don't get clutter from all of the fields that we didn't fill out. It simply puts on the page a nice clean version of all the fields that were completed. Obviously, we didn't do much with this document, just the time in, time out, and a few fields that we entered. But often there will be fields in forms that aren't filled, and those won't make it into the final submitted version. If we want to print it, we can switch to Preview, and it'll pull up this nice print version of the form. And that's how Hospice Tools handles psychosocial assessments, and how, generally speaking, the eDocs or the electronic documents work in the system. The Hospice Tools system houses all of the different documents, whether they're uploads or electronic documents, and lays them out in a nice, organized fashion so it's easy to flip through the chart and find exactly what you're looking for. Hospice Tools, how hospice happens.